This is Catholic Forum. I'm Bob Krebs. After a career in the financial and publishing industries in the U.S. and abroad, Allison Ellis put her career on hold to homeschool her children. Recently, she founded Mount Titano Media that publishes single works and collections of the greatest spoken and written words of all time. The first book published by Mount Titano Media is Finding Our Words, Words That Made America. Allison is the editor of that book. I'd like to welcome to Catholic Forum Allison Ellis. Allison, thanks so much for taking time to be with us today.
Thank you, Bob. It's a great pleasure.
So tell us about yourself. What did I leave out of your introduction?
You got a good summary there. But I had always planned on homeschooling. My goal was to spend my time with my family and children. And so knowing that I would want to do that and not personally having the funds or seeing how that would emerge, I decided to devote myself entirely to a career until I knew that wouldn't be a hard decision, that I would be able to do that no matter what. And so I did. And when I started homeschooling, I discovered that what I had thought was a wonderful education that I had worked very hard to earn over 12 years of Catholic school and undergrad in Texas. And then when I started homeschooling, a master's of liberal arts program at Stanford. Though I was very grateful for all of that education, that time in those places, but I realized that something had gone awry, something had been lost. And I discovered that through looking for materials for my daughter. And the more I looked at modern textbooks and materials, later I found many. There is a huge restoration underway in classical Christian education. And I hope to be just a small part of that restoration. But before I discovered those, just in the big sea of curriculum, so many of the books were ridiculous. They were offering nothing of substance. And so I started searching far and wide for materials, and I ended up finding tutors internationally and ultimately digging back in time. You know, the current materials I found were unsatisfactory. And I went back to what I used and realized, well, those were better, but I kept digging. And finally, most of our materials, turns out, were from the 19th century, because I think that was a real peak in education. And all of that is very clear in hindsight with the research and study I've been doing now almost 2 decades, but very, full-time for 15 years in homeschooling. And so eventually with the lockdowns in California, which were very hard and long, there was a general awareness that was not there previously about the state of education at large. And people were approaching me constantly. Friends, family, people knocking on my door, and even strangers out in public who could recognize when I was with my daughter that we were homeschoolers. And they would ask, what in the world, how do we do it? What materials, what's available? And so because I had the background in publishing and loved the literary academic life, it was a natural segue to start pulling together the materials I had used and the things I discovered I wanted to use but didn't have with my daughter, and to make them available.
So that's how Mount Titano Media came about.
Yes.
So let's talk about, since we're celebrating the, what is it, 249th birthday of the United States of America, the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Really, I was really fascinated with finding our words, words that made America come about. So how did that book come about? Why did you decide that would be the first publication of your new company?
Yes, this is the first volume in a series called Finding Our Words, Words That Made America. The next release will be Great Words of Greece and Rome. And there is a very specific reason for the progression. And then the one after that will be Great Words of Early Christianity. But in studying with my daughter, and I say studying with, because, again, I recognized that what I thought had been a very rich education, and I think it was good. I'm grateful for what I had, but it was not at all what could have been and what I believe should be. I think the decay in education that's been happening, it started with the Industrial Revolution, and there have been periods and reasons where it, took serious dives. And in the last 20 years, it's been a fall off the cliff. Again, there's the restoration coming, so there's a lot of hope on the horizon as well. Mm-hmm. But in studying with my daughter, I recognized, one of the many things I realized is that I didn't know anything really about American history. I traveled to 50 countries approximately, and I had learned quite a bit about the world at large, but knew nothing about my home. And so to me, at this point, not knowing your history is like not knowing the name of your grandparents or great-grandparents. How can we live and appreciate and work to protect and improve what we don't know anything about and therefore don't care enough about? So in studying and teaching American history to my daughter, I was learning myself. And we just started at the very beginning. We studied old patriotic songs. We memorized the Pledge of Allegiance, the national anthem. And I decided to start reading early American speeches because one of the things I've learned in education is, of course, the ad fontes, to the sources. And so I didn't want to read interpretations of interpretations of interpretations, just go to the original voices. And I started reading these words with my daughter aloud when she was 5. I taught her very early to read, and I advocate heavily for that. That's a part of, we don't expect or give enough to our children, and they're very capable. And I have a lot of reasons, things I saw around the world that taught me that very clearly. And so my time with my daughter was something of an experiment for myself and for her, and it's proven wonderful. And the materials we used for the speeches were in general helpful, I guess, for adults. But in working with children, it was limiting because the layouts were such that young eyes couldn't track the small font and the tight layout. Mm-hmm. And the sequence wasn't what I would consider ideal. And there wasn't enough introductory material to give children the background to know who the speakers were and why these speeches mattered and who they were for. So over the 10 years of reading them aloud, and we still read them aloud regularly, these ideas were brewing, lights were going on left and right, that I was learning what I could do to present this so parents, teachers, and students, even very young, could read and appreciate and love these great words.
That was going to be my follow-up question. What is the target audience? Is it for students? Is it for adults? But you already answered that. It's for both.
Yes, and that's the part of so there, of course, with young readers, you have materials that they can read independently. But the reading with young children should not be limited to that. And actually, it should be just a small portion of it. I think it's very important. I say if they can hear you, they're learning. I lived in places in the world where children grew up speaking 2 or 3 languages, and they would speak and understand them decently at 2, 3 years old, like our 3-year-olds will speak and understand English. And that's pretty effortless for them. There are little ducklings. We imprint the language. But we wait so long in school to teach language. Sometimes, of course, in the world of classical education and faith-based education, Greek and Latin are important, often neglected, or they start very late when it's actually harder. So my daughter started studying Latin at 5 and Greek at 7. And so at this point now she has almost 9 years in for Latin at 14. And so, there were moments where it was challenging, of course. Anything good and worthy is challenging. But at this point, she's got a foundation that many students going into master's programs in classics won't have. And I think that's unfortunate. It's not that we need to be tiger moms and, crush them with the weight of learning. It's a joyful experience, and I think it's actually easier for them. but we just haven't done it for so long that we've forgotten that it's possible and how actually easy it is. It's a lot of work, but it's a cumulative. There are lots and lots of easy steps.
My guest today on Catholic Forum is Allison Ellis. She is the founder of Mount Titano Media, and their first book, published by Mount Titano Media, is Finding Our Words, Words That Made America. So walk us through the book, Allison. What will we see if we start flipping through?
Well, if I may, I would like to let these fine words do the talking. There are speeches ranging from Patrick Henry and concluding with Reagan. I think greatness it often requires time to assess and determine what really was great for the nation, sometimes in the middle of upheaval. For example, George Washington was, of course, beloved of many and despised by many, Lincoln as well. And so these things take some time to fully understand. So Patrick Henry to Reagan, and there are 3 speeches that were delivered on July 4th. And I'm going to read just a tiny bit of each one, this is exactly what I advocate we do with our families. It's not just a way to restore education, it is a way to restore family time, away from screens and away from scattered schedules. Even 15 minutes per day, reading aloud, all of us together with our family, great words. And if our family means mom, dad, and a toddler or an infant, it still applies. So the first speech given on July 4th, it's included, was by John Quincy Adams in 1837. And he said, "You are here to pause a moment and take breath in the ceaseless and rapid pace of time, to look back and forward, to take your point of departure from the ever memorable transactions of the day of which this is the anniversary, and while offering your tribute of thanksgiving to the Creator of all worlds, for the bounties of his providence, lavished upon your fathers and upon you, by the dispensations of that day, and while recording with filial piety upon your memories, the grateful affections of your hearts to the good name, the sufferings, and the service of that age, to turn your final reflections inward upon yourselves, and to say, these are the glories of a generation passed away. What are the duties they devolve upon us?" Aren't those beautiful words to read on July 4th?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. What's the next one?
The next one is Frederick Douglass, spoken in 1852, freed slave.
Frederick Douglass was born in our diocese on the eastern shore of Maryland, so we're very proud to claim him and Harriet Tubman as well.
Indeed. Yeah. And these are beautiful words from a giant spirit. He said, "Fellow citizens, I'm not wanting in respect for the fathers of this republic. The signers of the Declaration of Independence were brave men. They were great men too, great enough to give frame to a great age. It does not often happen to a nation to raise at one time such a number of truly great men. The point from which I am compelled to view them is not, certainly, the most favorable, and yet I cannot contemplate their great deeds with less than admiration. They were statesmen, patriots, and heroes, and for the good they did and the principles they contended for, I will unite with you to honor their memory." I mean, those are the words of a giant, a man who was raised in chains and was essentially self-educated.
Yeah. And people would point out, that many of the signers of the Declaration of Independence were slaveholders. So the fact that he can look beyond that, I think, is an attribute that Frederick Douglass had, and that we should recognize and honor.
Absolutely, it's something to emulate. There's so much either or in the public sphere today, and even the generals who opposed one another in the Civil War, and slaves who were freed from oppressors, who in theory were the defenders of freedom, they were big enough to acknowledge what was right and good in those others' efforts, and also to admonish them to mend their ways where they were wrong. It's
So
beautiful.
you
Do we
have
have
you
time
have
for?
yeah, we have another. Please share.
We do. This is Calvin Coolidge. These were the words delivered on our 150th anniversary in 1926. I'm going to read just a tiny excerpt. The American Revolution represented the informed and mature convictions of a great mass of independent, liberty-loving, God-fearing people who knew their rights and possessed the courage to dare to maintain them. Isn't that inspiring? Isn't that what we should strive to do?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, how many of those speeches are in the book?
It's 18, but what's really important is that each one is introduced with a beautiful essay written by Tracy Lee Simmons, the author of Climbing Parnassus, who that book and Tracy are both beloved in the classical movement and homeschool restoration movement. So every one of those essays, I think it's vital because trying to read these for myself, there's no context, and so you can't appreciate them as fully.
Right. And Tracy Lee would give, what's going on at the time in the
Yes,
country that actually puts the context to that particular work speech. Yeah.
yes, and he gives more information about the man, the character and the background of the man who spoke those words, which is also important and inspiring. And I say man because everyone in this work is a speech given by a man, and that's just fine by me. I don't have any concern with that. They were the people in those positions at the time, and they were also the ones who tended more at the time and throughout history
Right.
to be classically educated.
Correct. Yeah. But you do have a book called Heroines of History that does take a look at females.
That is
Yeah.
correct.
And that
Because
goes
they were
back,
there.
right? Yeah.
Pardon me?
Is that America or is that all over the world, the heroines?
This is Western civilization. So
Okay.
it begins with Greco-Roman history and goes through World War One.
Great.
So, and why does it stop with World War One? It's one of the premises, one of the principles of our work at Mount Titano Media that great material should be presented in great and fine words, beautiful composition, oratory, and I think so. I am in no way qualified to be called a writer or an orator. I'm not. I wasn't educated in the great way that these orators and leaders were, and that's fine. I understand it, and I don't think I can ever achieve that, but I can do work to assure that another generation will, and it's through these beautiful words, beautiful composition about great leaders, spiritual and civic leaders.
What do you want your readers to take away from these books?
Well, if I may, I would like to read another sentence or two. This is there are 5 saints included in this work,
Oh, okay.
and many civic leaders. They're empresses, but they're also heroines of mercy and heroines of the home. This one is about Mary Washington, the mother of George Washington, and I don't think she's really discussed much at all. I don't know if many people would even know her name. But in 1850, that was not the case. This author starts, the mother of Washington. There needs no eulogy to awaken the associations which cling around that sacred name. Our hearts do willing homage to the venerated parent of the chief. Well, they don't now generally, but they will again after people read these words. And this is what I'd like to leave with families. She writes, the contemplation of Washington's character naturally directs attention to her, whose maternal care guided and guarded his early years. What she did, and the blessings of a world that follows her, teach impressively while showing the power and the duty of those who would mold the characters of the age to come.
Very, very, very good. And I think you would probably agree. As we start the next couple of years, where we're celebrating the 250th birthday of our great country, that something like this would be very, very welcome in any home library, whether you have kids, grandkids, or not. To get to know these great writers and orators will certainly help anyone to better celebrate the birthday of our country coming up in the next year and the year after. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
So before we just have a couple of minutes left, how can we get the book? The book is titled "Finding Our Words: Words That Made America," and also "Heroines of History." How can we get that book and get more information about your organization, Mount Titano Media?
Our website is mounttitanomedia.com. Titano, oh, you have it spelled there. And so we sell the books on our website, and in particular, we sell them in bulk discount for schools and any organization. We work with veterans groups and homeschoolers, all schools, colleges, universities. We partner with distributors. Memoria Press is one of them, a great group who will be selling our books, and actually they are creating some classes around some of our works. And and then of course they're available on Amazon.
Perfect. Very good. We could probably go on talking a lot about classical education and about what you guys are doing at Mount Titano Media, but unfortunately we're out of time. Allison Ellis, thanks so much for being with us today on Catholic Forum. Have a blessed Independence Day holiday and a great year coming up as we celebrate the anniversary of our founding.
Thank you very much, Bob. A blessed July 4th to you and to your listeners.
Thank you.